Welcome to Case Note Friday, where every Friday I give you a case summary of a legal decision. My name's Fidan, I'm a family law solicitor practicing in Sydney, Australia, and today's case is a reported decision called Dawson and Barnaby. The reason the case is important, it's about short-term relationships and dividing assets when they've only been together a short time. These parties got together in 2019. We have Mike and we have Carol, represented by this pirate and witch. They marry in 2020 and they separate in 2022, right? Got together, start living together in 2019, which is when we count it for legal purposes in Australia. It's not when you get married, it's when you start living together. Start living together 2019, marry 2020, separate 2022. Altogether, it was about 3 and a bit years that they were together. Now, unusually in this case, the parties had an agreement about how to divide, how to treat their assets that they had coming in. They agreed that Mike would keep what he had coming in. He had $2.3 million worth of stuff. We're going to call that Pool A. He gets to keep asset Pool A, that is his share of it, $2.3 million. She had about $1 million worth of stuff coming in 2019, and she got to keep that because she had about 3 properties within it. And she had significant mortgages on those 3 properties, but her net equity was about $1 million. His was about 2.3. So they agree. Even though they've separated, I'm not going to make a claim on your stuff, you're not going to make a claim on my stuff. There was no financial agreement or prenup. They just agree on how to divide Pool A. That's okay, the judge lets you do that. They also had superannuation, most of which they already had before they knew each other. He had significant superannuation of about $400,000. She had about $80,000, so not a whole lot. And that was because of the age difference. But in any event, they both agreed, we're not going to make a claim on each other's super because you accumulated that during your life, your working life. Before you met me, I'm not going to make a claim on it. Superannuation is like a 401k for the Americans. It's preserved, right, for your retirement, those funds. So Pool A, what they had before, like in 2019. Pool C is their super. They each agreed, we're not fighting about that. So they go to court and they say to the judge, we're not fighting about what we had coming in. We both agreed we're going to keep our own. We're not fighting about our super, which is what we'll get in our retirement. We're going to keep that. What we're fighting about is what we accumulated during the 3 years we were together. That's called Pool B. So, interestingly, they were very, very clevers. They decided they were going to invest in real estate. They saw an up-and-coming suburb and said to themselves, there's opportunity here and we've both got some wealth, so why don't we set up a company and why don't we buy real estate for the purpose of getting rental income and appreciation, that is the property will increase in value and we can both profit off it. Wonderful, wonderful idea in theory. So during their 3-year relationship, they buy 2 properties. We have the first one, property E, we're going to call that, and property F. Property F is the big one, which is why it's represented by the tall building. This little lemon candle will represent property E. So property F, they buy for $2 million. Property E, they buy for $420,000. Now, why this is important is they buy this property for $2 million and then they sell it for $3 million. Only 18 months later. I should say that there was significant renovations. So there was $1 million in just capital gain in that 18-month period from when they bought and when they sold, right? And so they're fighting about that. They're also fighting about the contributions that they made to this property because Carol says, hang on a second. All things aren't equal. When we bought the property for $2 million, let's not forget I put in let me get it right, I think it was $675. She puts in $675,000, including paying all the deposit, which was $200,000. She puts in $675,000 into the property, right? And he doesn't put in any cash, but they had to get a big mortgage because it's worth $2 million. And he uses his properties that he had in Pool A. Remember, he had wealth coming in. He had 2.3 worth of stuff. He uses those properties as collateral, his premarital relationship assets, to buy this property, right? He also goes personal guarantee on the mortgage. She doesn't do that. And it's his properties that are secured against it, as well as the asset itself. So that was his contribution. It wasn't a monetary contribution. It was like an indirect contribution. He's gone personal guarantee, and that's how they got the loan, by using the properties he already had. So that creates a little bit of complexity because Carol was saying, after they'd sold it, well, it's pretty easy. Give me my $675 back. because that's what I put in, isn't it? And if it wasn't for my $675, we never could have fucking bought it. If we couldn't bought it, we never would have made the profit. I get it back dollar for dollar. I get 90% of this property, of the sale proceeds. That's what she said. He was like, no, it's 50-50. You don't get that back. There's no refunds here, madam. We never could have got it if I didn't put a personal guarantee on the loan and use my assets that I had in the beginning to put as security. We never would have got the finance. You never could have bought a $2 million property with the $675,000. So you see the competing arguments. Who's in the right? We'll get to that. The other little property they had over here, property E, they buy for $420,000 and they sell, no, they don't sell, they still own it for $620 is what it was valued at. So it's gone up a little bit, $200,000 in 3 years, not bad. Now this property did have a mortgage, but when they sell this property, they pay off that mortgage. So at the time of the trial, we have property E, Lemon, sitting there with $620,000 with no mortgage. Now we have here money sitting in trust because they've sold it already. They sold it for $3 million, they paid the mortgage, and there's money sitting in trust. Let me break it down a little bit for you. Okay, here's the breakdown. They sell for $3 million, they pay the debt and expenses, and they're left with 1.5. They then pay off the mortgage for property E, that's Lemon, and it leaves 1.261. Of that, they agree to an interim distribution. So Carol got $784 and Mike got $125,000. The balance was locked up in a trust account. There was $264,000 left in trust that they were fighting about, given that they'd already distributed some, and they were also fighting about who gets property E, Lemon. Okay, so let's have a look at what the judge said. The wife said that she should get 90% of property F, that's the big one, because of all the contributions she made, disregarding the fact that it was necessary for the husband to use his pre-relationships assets as security to buy that property. And second, he went guarantor on the debt on his own. And thirdly, he made non-financial contributions to that property because there were some renovations. She took a very mathematical approach and said of this little property, she should get 76% because of what she put in financially. The husband said it should just be 50-50 on both properties. The judge disagreed with both parties and said that the wife's contribution to this property of at least $675,000 that he did not match was significant, but it wasn't a 90% adjustment. That was just way too much. So the wife took a very mathematical approach of dollar for dollar what she put in, she wanted back, because it was only a 3-year relationship. But the judge said that's not the law, that's not the way we calculate it. Contributions ought to be assessed holistically, not mathematically. And for those law students out there, remember that because that's the legal principle. This part is interesting what the trial judge said. 2 properties went up largely as a result of market forces rather than any particular contribution. They should both share in the fruits of that endeavour because it was a joint investment, always intended to be a joint venture. So Pool B in the end was about $1.8 million. She said she should get 76% of that. He said that she should get 50%. So they had a big dispute. The judge ultimately decided that she should get 67.5% and he should get 32.5% of that Pool B, remembering A and C are to the side. So what does that mean in dollar terms? Let me break it down. She wanted to keep property E, so she got Lemon. She'd already received that from the sale of property F, remember. The judge said she had to give him $200,000. That means she ended up with a total of 1.2 on a pool of 1.793. This is Pool B, remember? So she got her 67%. He got cash from the wife. That was a cash payment. That was the 125 he'd already received, and he got the entirety of what was remaining in the lawyer's trust account. So that was him getting his 32%. The wife thought that 67% was shithouse. She didn't like that decision, so she appealed it. The case came before the Honourable Justice Schnell, who decided the judge got it 100% right, and the wife's dollar-for-dollar mathematical approach was not the law and was not how it was to be calculated. She wasn't giving the husband contributions. She was giving him credit for what he did. She thought he did jack and she should get more. The judge said there was no error in law. The trial judge got it right. Suck it. He then sought costs and said, "Madam, you appealed and you lost, pay my costs." The court said, I'm going to fix the costs at $20,000 because you guys can't agree on anything. You won't be able to agree on the cost payable. So, madam, pay him another $20,000 to compensate him for the costs. That's the end of the decision.